What if I told you that one of the most trending longevity secrets today is nothing but a clever marketing strategy? What we're talking about here are the famous blue zones. But before we get into the nuances of them, let me give you a quick overview of the concept. Essentially, it's an idea that there are 5 areas in the world where people seem to live longer than everywhere else. These areas are Okinawa in Japan, Sardinia in Italy, Nicoya in Costa Rica, Icaria in Greece, and Loma Linda in California. Dan Buettner, an American author, worked with National Geographic to research these longevity hotspots. They looked into the lifestyle of people and searched for common factors that supposedly help them live longer. They found 9, called them the Power 9, put them into a book called The Blue Zones, and started marketing the concept as a key to longevity. The first is natural movement. According to Mr. Buettner, instead of functional training, longest living people move around naturally. Whether it's tending to their garden or doing housework, it all counts. Here's what Dan Buettner himself has to say about this.
They move naturally. Whether it was for their job as shepherds, where they kind of move all day long, it's a low impact exercise, where they're gardening for that hobby, kind of growing food, again, low impact. Around their house, they take care of kind of the jobs by themselves. They wouldn't hire somebody to mow the lawn, to shovel the walk. Met a woman, 104 years old, in Costa Rica, that was mowing her lawn with a machete when I met her. Can you imagine that?
The second secret is having a purpose. Dan Buettner claims that knowing the reason you wake up can add up to 7 years of life. Then it's just as important to de-stress. The American author calls it downshifting, and it simply means having a planned activity that will help you relax. The following 3 factors are related to nutrition. Firstly, there is the 80% rule, which means you should stop eating when you're 80% full. Then you should also consider what you eat. The Blue Zones theory is a huge advocate of the Mediterranean diet, which is mostly plant-based, with meat eaten once a week or so. Arshel Georgiou, a physician who worked as a medical correspondent for the Blue Zones expedition to one of the hotspots, explains how a veggie-heavy diet appeared in Icaria, Greece.
In Icaria, it's somewhat of a supercharged Mediterranean diet, and that's because the island is so small and so remote with no natural harbors that over time it's been extremely difficult to import and export any foods at all, let alone processed foods. And so they've learned to be extremely self-sufficient, and essentially they only eat what they grow.
To round off the meals, Dan Buettner also recommends regular, yet moderate, drinking. While it sounds quite absurd, the author claims that having 1 or 2 glasses of wine per day will help you outlive non-drinkers. After de-stressing, wining, and dining, it's time for the community to come into play. The 7th factor claims that the longest living residents of the Blue Zones supposedly belong to a faith-based community. Then they put their families first by staying near their aging family members, committing to spouses, and prioritizing their children. And finally, outside of the family, they have the so-called right tribe, which is a close social circle that supports healthy behaviors. The authors of the Blue Zones concept put this Power 9 into 4 broader categories, which sound reasonable: move, have the right outlook, eat wisely, and connect with people. So why are more and more scientists questioning the reasoning behind the Blue Zones concept and calling it a marketing trick or even disinformation? The biggest problem that healthcare experts seem to have with the Blue Zones is flawed research methodologies and issues with reported data. First of all, there's more and more emerging critique about the reliability of the reported age of centenarians in the Blue Zones. While Dan Buettner talks of people who live to 100 and beyond, the truth is that many of those people are missing birth certificates. Dr. Saul Justin Newman, a senior research fellow at UCL, whose areas of interest include demography and unethical science, notes that even if the documents exist, they might be flawed. Dr. Newman has been investigating the Blue Zones theory. After comparing the data provided by Dan Buettner with current observed patterns, Dr. Newman found that the assumptions the Blue Zones team made about the reasons why some people live longer were questionable. Ironically, the supposed longer lifespan seems to be the result of poor record keeping, clerical errors, and even pension fraud that arises from poverty. Mismatches like these are so huge, you have to admit they're quite hilarious. Then there's the question of diet. The authors of the Blue Zones concept claim that the longest living people mostly eat a plant-based diet. However, current research shows that while some of the longest living residents of the 5 hotspots did have a lot of veggies, there were also those who ate a lot of meat products, which reveals quite an inconsistency. Additionally, the analysis of the dietary patterns of these communities was non-systematic and is quite incomplete, potentially leading to incorrect assumptions. The diets of people from the blue zones do contain some food that are beneficial to our health, but they also might eat products that are recommended to be limited by health authorities, like lard or bacon fat. By the way, there's the paradoxical situation with Okinawa. According to the current records of the Japanese government, Okinawans eat the least vegetables of all Japan and have the highest body mass index. So their diet is far from plant-based, and they tend to be overweight, both factors that may contribute to a shorter lifespan. We should also take into account the actual epidemiological health data from the so-called blue zones. Remember the 80% rule? Well, data from Okinawa shows that some of the residents in the early 2000s weren't on a low-calorie diet by choice. Instead of consciously practicing mindful eating, they were fighting malnutrition, which potentially caused harm for later generations. Another major issue with the blue zones concept is the recommended alcohol consumption. Dan Buettner and his team suggest we have a wine glass or 2 every day. But today, this recommendation seems contradictory to our longevity, since health organizations and the newest alcohol drinking guidelines suggest that no amount of alcohol is safe or beneficial to us. We should also keep in mind that the blue zone discussions have overlooked some important factors. The blue zone's founders team didn't evaluate genetic factors, socioeconomic situations, or access to healthcare, which all have a major impact on our longevity as well. Plus, it's likely the data is outdated. The concept appeared in the early 2000s, and the situation of certain aspects could have changed drastically. Now, we have a lot more research on longevity and different components of healthy lifestyle. So what was thought to be true or was actually true 20 years ago might not be relevant anymore. So if there are so many questions regarding the legitimacy of the claims behind the blue zones, then how did it become such a popular concept? The answer is pretty simple, with the help of some very clever marketing. By now, what started with a single book has grown into a massive business. 8 books, a Netflix series, and a whole bunch of products. However, if you look closer, you'll see that blue zones have simply presented common practices as if they were groundbreaking discoveries. We all know that physical activity is beneficial for us. Most of us also understand that eating more plant-based foods can only do us good. And striving for a less stressful life that's filled with time with loved ones is quite a common practice too. At the same time, any marketing strategy will always present data in a simpler manner than a scientific study. In marketing cases like the blue zones, complex issues are often oversimplified. There are many aspects to longevity, such as lifestyle, genetics, or environment, and it's impossible to put them all into 9 steps. As I've mentioned, the merchandise of the blue zones now includes quite a few products. In addition to the books, you can also buy a meal plan, a cooking course, tea, coffee, honey, canned soup, bowl toppers, and even skincare, and that's not even the full list. However, the benefits of these products are questionable. While they don't necessarily entail a literal promise of longevity, it's there by association. But if you look closer, the products sold under the Blue Zones brand are pretty much the same ones you could find in any supermarket. The only difference is the brand on the packaging. As for their meal plans, you're buying a cat in a bag. There is no free preview of the recipes and suggestions available, nor is there any proof that the recipes are developed with nutrition professionals. With so much contradicting evidence at hand, you're probably wondering if Blue Zones are a complete scam. While some data and substantiation behind the concept have some flaws, it does not mean there is nothing to learn here. Generally, the ideas behind the so-called Power 9 do have some legitimacy. Transitioning to a healthier, more plant-based diet can surely add a few years to your lifespan. Dr. Jennifer Cottle, a licensed family medicine physician and college professor, explains how.
Lowering risks for diabetes, cholesterol, and high blood pressure. Also improving those indices that fall within those as well. People who adopt plant-based diets tend to do better with things like diabetes, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, okay? Now, once again, I'm not saying this is a one-size-fits-all and that this is everyone, but these dietary changes are healthy changes that's going to positively impact your overall health.
Incorporating more physical activity in your everyday life and proper stress management will also improve your well-being. One of the world's leading researchers, Professor of Genetic Epidemiology at King's College London, Tim Spector, notes it's also hugely important to socialize, even if it's over a glass of wine.
And the fact that these people are spending 2 or 3 times longer than the average American on a meal. I mean, I think, the importance of that ticks all the boxes from digestion to communication to de-stressing, to making these other contacts. So just the act of a communal meal sort of ticks all these boxes that we now know are really important for longevity.
What you should remember, however, is that these lifestyle changes aren't the only factors in play. So while adopting these healthy patterns are likely to contribute to a longer, healthier life, they don't have the sole influence on your longevity.